Hello and welcome for today's lesson. Today's lesson is going to be on sketching quadratic graphs. We're going to do it with this example here on this graph. The graph of y is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 10. Please don't, a lot of people don't like sketching graphs, but I think the key word is here, sketch. We're not doing any plotting. We're not going to be drawing a table of values and plotting it from line to line. We're going to be sketching it. And with a quadratic, all we need to worry about is getting the shape of it right and getting 4 key points in the correct place. Now, the quadratic graph is, if I draw a random example, is going to look something like that. Okay? This is for when it's a positive x squared. Okay, if it's negative x squared, so for example, it's going to look something like that. Now, the 4 key points we need to get on this graph are what we call the y-intercept. So this is where the graph intercepts the y-axis. And the x-intercepts, usually 2. These represent the roots of the equation, actually, and that's how we find them. And we also need the coordinates of the minimum point of this graph, the point where it kind of changes direction, if you like, which is called the vertex. We also need the coordinates of the vertex. And it just happens, all of the stuff which we've done on quadratics so far, we're going to apply it to all of this graph, which will help us find the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts, and the vertex. Okay? So, we can do the example y equals x squared plus 8x plus 10. Let's just extend the page. Yeah. Now, first of all, we're going to find the y-intercept. Okay? Really easy, this one. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Now, if we think about that, where it crosses the y-axis, if we look at this graph here, it's going to be when x is 0. So to find the y-intercept, we have to sub in x is equal to 0 to find y. In this example, we get y is equal to 0 squared plus 8 lots of 0 plus 10. 0 squared plus 8 lots of 0 is just 0, so that means, there's an arrow there, y is equal to 10. The y-intercept, therefore, which is this predator symbol, therefore the y-intercept is at 0, 10. Now, for any general quadratic, we do not have to do all of this each time. And in fact, any polynomial graph, the y-intercept is always going to be the number at the end. Okay? The y-intercept is always the constant at the end. It's the first thing on a graph which you can sketch on, because it's so easy. It's always the number at the end. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to find the x-intercepts. Now, the x-intercepts are where the graph crosses the y-axis, x-axis even, and this is where y is equal to 0. These points, this point here and this point here, are where y equals 0. So, if we sub in y is equal to 0 to find out what x is, we get that 0 is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 10. Hang on a minute. This is a quadratic equation. To find the x values, we're going to have to solve this quadratic equation. Now, first of all, we're going to have to think about factorising it. Spend a few seconds deciding whether this is factorised. Well, factors of 10 are 2 and 5. They definitely don't equal 8. 10 and 1, they don't equal 8. Right, I'm going to use the formula. This doesn't factorise. So x is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac way. So x is minus 8 plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 8 squared, which is 64, minus 4 lots of 1 multiplied by 10, so 4 lots of 10, divided by 2. A is 1. So my x-intercepts by the solutions of this equation, minus 8 plus or minus the square root of 24 all over 2. Now, I'll probably simplify that using a bit of surd manipulation. So minus 8 plus or minus, now 24 we can write as 4 times 6. 24 is 4 times 6, so that becomes 2 root 6 divided by 2. And that means that we have minus 8 divided by 2 is minus 4, plus or minus 2 root 6 divided by 2 is just root 6. So our x-intercepts are at the coordinates minus 4 plus root 6, 0, and minus 4 minus root 6, and 0. Okay? So we can actually sketch the graph now. We know our y-intercept is at 0, 10, and we know where our x-intercepts are. So, sketching the curve. Now notice I'm not using a straight line here. You can if you want, but we're not plotting it. We know that roughly 0, 10 is there. So to just get all the marks, you're going to write down 0, 10. Now our x-intercepts, they are minus 4 plus root 6. Now root 6, as a little bit of estimation, is going to be just above 2. So minus 4 plus 2 point something is still going to be negative. So that point there is going to be minus 4 plus root 6. And this point here, minus 4 minus root 6, is going to be somewhere there. So I need to put 0 in there. Put that there. Now our graph, because it's y is equal to positive x squared, i.e. there's no negative in front of the x squared, it's going to look like that. Doesn't, if it was negative, it would look the other way around. Okay? So the graph is definitely going to look somewhere like that. Okay? Now, our final point is the vertex. Now, I think the best way to do this is by completing the square. Okay? This is where it helps us practice completing the square a little bit more as well. 8 squared, x squared plus 8x plus 10. Okay? So let's complete the square, which means we have to half the 8, so it'll be x plus 4 all squared. 4 squared is 16, we want 10, so we have to subtract 6. Okay? So by completing the square, now what this means is, and this is a bit fiddly, but this bracket is a number all squared. Okay? Now this means that this entire thing, all squared, it's got to be positive. Because we're squaring, no matter what is inside the brackets, we're squaring it, which means our answer will always be positive. Which means that the minimum value this whole expression could be is 0. Okay? It's going to be 0. And this will be 0 when x plus 4 is 0, i.e. when x is minus 4. Okay? Now what we're trying to find out, this vertex here is the minimum point. So we know instantly that it's going to be the minimum point when this bracket is 0, when x is minus 4. Now what that tells us, even further with completed square form, is that y, if this bracket here is 0, the y coordinate has to be minus 6. So y minus 6. These coordinates here are minus 6. And we can sketch the graph. This is the graph of y is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 10. Okay? Recap, y-intercept is a constant number at the ends when it's in expanded form, i.e. not completely square. Not when it's completely square, when it's all expanded. The x-intercepts, these are found as the roots, solutions to the equation. And finally, the vertex is found by the completing the square. Okay? Now, a little bit more about that completing the square. I'll show how easy it is. If we wanted to find the vertex of y is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 3, for example, I know that by completing the square we get x minus 3 all squared. 3 squared is 9, we want 6, so subtract 6. That means that the coordinates of my vertex, well, x minus 3 has to be 0, that means that x is 3, and our y coordinate is minus 6.